Hello, I am Couch Coop, and we are going to look at Ark, the new Genesis 2 content, how it performs on the PlayStation 5. We had an update which was 2.51, which was a year old, which has given it some PlayStation 5 boosting, and I thought I'd need to test this. I remember testing the original Genesis on the PlayStation 4 Pro, so let's have a look. Ark's performance notoriety, i.e. the game is quite famous for being janky as hell in areas, especially on a split screen level. It barely kind of worked on a base level PlayStation 4 when you put a split screen system on it and started having a lot of assets, a lot of buildings, a lot of dinos. It would just fall over, run at 12 frames per second, and there was a big issue with accessing the infantry and giving the other player a jerkiness on screen. Now, Ark comes with its own performance and fidelity mode, being a detailed tab on the options. What you're looking at here is the performance, and we're looking at 30 frames per second, but that is pegged. That's a hell of a jump from what we were seeing on the PlayStation 4 or Pro even. There are no real major frame drops at all. Ark is kind of free for the month of March on the PlayStation Network, and of course it's available on Game Pass now. It's a larger game in excess of 100GB, but it's totally worth it. It's one of the best co-op PvE experiences you can have, in my opinion. But let's concentrate on this split screen mode because it's a bit strange. You're tethered in, meaning that you cannot wander off, you do not have access, you are not autonomous on this map. You basically get to an invisible circle and it will pull you back in. It's extremely frustrating, but it comes with the territory, I think, with a game this size, and it can't really manage it on a singular machine if you start wandering around different large areas of the map. This does mar the experience a little bit, but the game's extremely ambitious, and I'll go into how you should use the split screen area to your advantage. I do want to go on record as saying it is totally noticeable the difference running this game on a PlayStation 5 with split screen. I could never do a pan like this before. It would be jerky, there'd be screen tearing, it would be a mess. It's extremely workable now, which is a damn good sign. We're going to have a look at the majority of maps, and I went back to the original island. I wanted to see how the sea works, because when you were running this on an original base level system, that water would take a huge dip in fidelity. It looks incredible on the split screen with the 5, and I know some of this quality carried over on the Pro because I reviewed the performance of the game years ago on the Pro, and I remember saying I'm quite impressed with how they've kept that detail reflections on the ocean, but it's really predominant, and there's just the lack of screen tearing, and when you swivel around and everything on screen sort of remains intact. It's awesome. Ark 2 is still billed for coming out this year, so this might be the last hurrah for the original Ark, and it's one of the few games that I feel totally deserves a private server rental, i.e. using an external company to run your own map that's yours, no one else allowed in. You can twist the variables and just have so much fun with your mates. It's one of the greatest created PvE worlds ever to be put onto a console. I'm serious, it's up there with the GTA 5 map, but it's bigger in my eyes because of the amount of creatures you can tame and the structures that you can build. It's Minecraft meets Pokemon meets Jurassic Park. Let's talk about some of its problems on a split screen level. It gets in a bit of a twist if you both die in succession. You're supposed to spawn back near your teammate, but if your teammate is currently dying or has died, it doesn't really know what to do, and there is a situation where you could be spawned in right on the outside of that tether circle and be stuck behind a rock and not be able to get in and out. But the joy is you can always leave and come back. That's another cool thing about this split screen mode, is just one click of a button, you're out, your mate's on full screen again, and you just come back in once things are sorted. You kind of also need to be careful on uploading your survivor or the other player having a profile and it not loading in properly and them having to start at like a low rank helper. That happens a lot. That if you're a guest, then you really haven't got much to do other than support the other guy with getting the resources, helping with fights. And because it's not vertical, horizontal only split, I kind of struggle when things get really busy. This is the Valgarro map, and this is real-time joining on the other pad. It has a bit of a stutter, and then that screen is in, bang. It's pretty damn quick. It is not as much of a mess as it was a couple of years ago. Valgarro is also one of the more recent maps, and I think it's user generated and it made it onto the official Ark roster. It's incredible, it looks very cool, and it's totally recommended as a good starter map. I think this game is going to become quite popular for this month, and I think a lot of players are going to take the opportunity to have a look at this game, especially with the sequel coming out and especially with it being completely free on the Sony network. I've also switched it out to the quality mode for this footage, and it's kind of pretty amazing to have that resolution that crisp. It's probably 720 on a base level PlayStation 4, and it kind of ruins a lot of these beautiful maps. The other thing, and Borderlands 3 suffered from this terribly, it is of course the inventory menu stagger on the other screen. When you push circle, you bring up your inventory, and it is done hundreds of times an hour by either player. So you're going to see a lot of disturbance on that front. It's understandable because there's a handshake and there's a lot of data getting passed, and of course it is a nanosecond of jerkiness, but it's enough to make you realise it's happening. Borderlands 3 managed to get on top of it, but only on the 5, and I was very annoyed that they haven't addressed this yet. When you play it single player on the PlayStation 5, getting on and off your beast or going in and out your infantry would again stagger things a bit on the frame rate level. It's smooth as hell, but it is not been catered for or dealt with on the split screen mode. I am very tough on this game because I love it so much. Not a lot of open world PvE and PvP games attempt what Ark Survival Evolved has been doing for nearly half a decade over that, and I cannot wait to see some actual in-engine gameplay of Ark 2. That Vin Diesel material was great, but come on guys, show us some juicy gameplay. We are looking at the Extinction map, one of my favourites of the newer maps, and this is again a recommended great starter map. Nice passive area to get your head around the whole thing in, loads of flyers and height. You can get huge multi-tiered bases on this map, but there's no nighttime as well, so it takes that complication out of the equation. So if you keep your eyes on the top screen, you'll see that I'm spamming my circle button on the bottom, and that staggered frame rate drop, or basically pausing of the whole game itself, is very noticeable to me. Very difficult in combat. You need to communicate with each other if you're going to start going in and out of the infantry loads. If you're building something and that happens, you put a block in the wrong place, you're going to lose your mind. With that being said, it is one of the largest local co-op games on earth, and Wildcard have done a brilliant job with keeping it fresh with new content coming in. I'm also going to switch out the modes here, and let me know in the comments if you see any major differences, because the only major jump is the pegged frame rate when you go for that performance mode. It's really that good. You don't see a huge knockdown in detail when you switch that on, and I think that's important. You do see, however, some performance issues when you've got it in high detail, so it's just a no-brainer there. Keep it in performance mode, you've still got luscious visuals and a great looking game. I've been Couch Coop. I'll see you down there.